Hello, and welcome again to my show, Searching for Integrity. My name really is John Smith, and I'm searching for people with integrity. Why? Because our country suffers from IDD, Integrity Deficit Disorder. We have today an author, Jerry Bures, and his book, When Kids Leave Clues, 26 times less stories of inspiration and essential life. Was that a 2 to 6 or 26?
26.
26. Okay, just making sure. Well, that's great. I'm reading through your information. It's quite a bit, quite a bit. So how is your life, Jerry? Having 6 kids.
So I think we have spent our lives a lot like many other parents, raising kids with a lot of challenges. And so it's been a life of, I would say, perseverance and courage, and at times integrity. So I think, I think I'm here today to try and give hope to parents that there are a few things that we can do right when we parent our kids that will kind of level the playing field for us. So I'm here to talk about, how to motivate ourselves and how we can build better kids in the process.
Well, let's start right here. First, what's the most important thing? I guess that as time passes, and you realize that this or that whatever is strikes you, is there some of those moments that you could share with about your book?
Sure. So I would say probably the number one key that we've learned through raising our kids is that we have to take care of ourselves first. There's a lot of debate in the field of psychology on that topic, but the reality is our kids really need us to be there for them. And I think most of us are aware that if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't have ourselves in a good place, say mentally and emotionally, if we don't think of ourselves with high regard, if we are constantly feeling guilty about things day to day, a lot of this gets passed on to our kids and or it shows up in how we parent them. And so that's kind of why in my book I put self-care as the first chapter, because I believe without exception that is the key to parenting well. If we bring ourselves to this game of parenting in good health and good repair and refreshed as often as possible, our chances of turning out good kids are much, much higher.
Well, certainly that is the foundation. I have no people, family members, that type of thing, and a lot of times they just must be the parents that are angry or yelling all the time, and a problem. Of
Sure.
course, kids pick that up,
Yeah.
and then it goes nowhere. And then everybody's screaming. Um, so I was going to have to say, what's your magic wand on that one?
Yeah, and I guess I should probably preempt all this conversation with the idea that there are multiple ways of parenting and you can still turn out good kids. There's no one size fits all. If I was to pick one thing that any parent should focus on as a philosophy, to making sure their kids are feeling confident that their kids will turn out one day, it would be this, and that would be that our only job as a parent is to put ourselves out of a job, right? Because someday our kids will leave home, or that's the goal at least. And so we want to continue to focus on what are the kinds of things that we need to do to make them more capable, uh, morally grounded, good in relationships and communicating with partners and coworkers, etc. So our job really becomes, you know, a dual task of living by example and then teaching independence. So kids understand that, by the time they're 18, it's on them now to go out and kind of live their life and literally build their life.
Mm-hmm.
So
What's the oldest child?
our oldest is 29, and he
That's no
is
child.
no. In fact, all of our kids are now adults. Our last one is just graduating homeschooling this year, and she's 18. And then everyone else is in between that. So our oldest does have, he's married and he has two kids of his own. So now we are blessed as being grandparents, and it's kind of interesting. And I'm sure you can kind of reflect or kind of think of this similarly in that, grandkids are a lot different than your own kids. You're not in the same, you're not on the battlefield
Right.
like when you were raising your kids. So you think about things differently and you sometimes will act differently. So really parents need to be encouraged in that this is a process. This is not something you're going to get right out of the gate. You may not even get it right after the first 1, 2, or 3 kids, but it's meant to be a process, just like life. We are meant to grow. We are meant to, explore and build our own, evolve our own abilities, evolve our own philosophies. And so, we can certainly shortchange that when we take in concepts and ideas from other people. Absolutely. And I know you do a great job on your website and with your work there in helping people with integrity. So it's a reality that people just need to continually learn, continually apply the things they learn. We'll do that with our kids for sure.
I was thinking just at the end there about the kids, 6, that I wonder which one needs the most. Which one's the least? Is it the top child, the bottom child, the in the middle child? Is there any way you can put a measurement on that?
It's a great question. I've heard the question asked another way in that, can you love one of your children more than any of the others? And the truth is that we are all unique individuals as parents. Our kids are all unique individuals as children, and so there is no one size fit all. For example, to answer your question directly, I would say our oldest son and our second oldest son in combination probably needed the most care, and I'll tell you quickly why that is. So in our
Good.
case, our oldest son, I adopted him when he was about 8 years old. I met him and his mom when he was about 2.5. So he had all of our attention until we started having our own children together. And so then we had our first child together, and this child had medical challenges. He had special needs to start, then developed medical challenges. Now, if you can imagine a lot of the crises that we've had over like a period of 10 years with emergency hospitalizations and stuff, now all of a sudden this oldest child who was fairly young at the time, right? He was maybe 8, or he was I think he was 5 when we first had our first child, but basically in the midst of all the challenges he was about 8 and then older. And so all of a sudden he was getting all his attention, then he wasn't. Now he had his special needs sibling on the scene, and then because we wanted a larger family, we started having more kids. And so our oldest child had a lot of challenges to overcome, and to his credit, we probably didn't serve him as well as we could have or should have. Again, we were learning, we were growing in it all, but to his credit, he really took a lot of the good that we did teach and created a really good life for himself now. And like I said,
Right.
he had some challenges as a teenager and then overcame them, and went on to get good work and raise a family himself now and doing good.
Well, kudos for that child, now a young man or an old man,
Yeah.
depending upon what he
Yeah.
does for a living. I had out of the box I had twin boys
Oh,
that were,
nice.
and they were they had each other, of course, but
Yeah.
it was oftentimes that people would ask me which one do you love more than the other, and I refused to answer that. It's just I love them both, you know,
You love
because
them differently.
that's right. I do.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
hey, I always have. You got six. You've got almost a team. I've got twins with a pitcher and a catcher, and a quarterback and a wide receiver,
Yeah.
and two guards, point guards. So I
There you
was in
go.
heaven. I was in heaven for until they graduated
Yeah.
high school. You know.
Yeah.
Did you ever have those kind of things where there's six, seven on the same team, or if they were athletic and and do that or not?
Yeah, actually, we kind of we're a tight-knit family. We did a lot of things together. So we homeschooled first of all, and then we put our kids into the 4-H, county 4-H program. So literally they all could do the similar stuff, right? They would choose their different
Right.
projects to do, but they were always doing projects and going to the fair and stuff like that. And they were in a Christian youth group. We did a lot of community service stuff. So we always worked on even larger teams than our own family team. So our kids got a lot of experience working together with others, and just learning what it takes to, not just be an individual, but realizing that this world is much bigger than ourselves. And that, to me, that was an important lesson that they needed to learn. So, and then of course on the home front, all the usual stuff. It's cliche to say, but kids need to be doing chores. Chores are, and I think if you talk to a lot of your rural population, that's just a normal thing, right? Because they've got land, they've got garden and farm animals and so on. And so people just typically learn and understand that when you grow up in this household, you're going to take care of some chores to help the family out, right? And in fact, a lot of the indigenous populations do that. A lot of your developing nations, that's how they run their families.
Hmm.
But somehow in our society, we seem to feel like as parents, like it's a burden that we have to have our kids help us out. We kind of like go to the opposite extreme. We were raised with authoritarian parents, and so we want to make it easy for our kids. And that's a big mistake that a lot of parents end up making. And those that decide to kind of parent like their parents did, are pleasantly surprised at how kids get strong work ethic and responsibility and teach independence and those kinds of things.
Right. Right. I should mention that Mac, he's got twin daughters,
Oh,
and
nice.
they're fairly young, and so it was something that people don't always have, and what they do and how it works out. I've never heard him complain, and I've worked with him now for a year. But with our house, it was always friends coming over, uh, and I don't even think I thought about a girl coming over until like, geez, middle school, something like that. Just a friend, hang out, because
Yeah,
the most figure was trying to figure out who's who.
right.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
was
I have
fun.
a hard time. Sure, and I have a hard time with identical twins. I'm always trying to, I'm asking the mom and dad, like, how do you tell them apart? And we actually lost identical twins right before our first child together.
Oh boy,
So we would have had identical twins as well, and it's a tough moment. This is one of those crises that some parents will go through, and it wasn't fun at the time, and some lessons learned, but memories made. Again, you grow as a human being from these challenges. In fact, I think you know you had made a great comment when you were telling your own story and your video about how we all have challenges, and we must face them with integrity and courage, and something similar to that, and that's the choice, and for those that decide to persist like you did and we did to do it with courage. Good things are on the other side. We just
sure,
need to be hopeful and faithful that that's the case.
right. Being being dad, being mom, being a parent, you're always thinking about how do I coach them next? Can I do?
Yeah.
And this is not just on athletics. This is how do I? It goes in if they're good students, if they're not, and the twins were very competitive for them, which was helpful. Um,
Yeah.
and I would imagine that people try to find or it develops alone that kind of relationship between siblings, and how to do it better. I can see here. I was looking through the Institute for Confident Parenting,
Yeah.
and I got a double underline this right here because you already passed the passed the test.
Okay.
I thought that one thing that you find in parenting, some of the things here, madness or wondering, raising happy, cooperative, all these efforts can be going all at the same time, 1 through 6. 6 is going through something versus 1, you know. Uh, how did you manage that in a sense?
We certainly don't manage it perfectly, and I think that's the illusion to today's parents in our society. We have this idea that parenting has to be so perfect, and that's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable from the children's point of view, nor from the parents. I mean, all it does is, when parents try to have the perfect holiday or have the perfect present or have the perfect, vacation or whatever, you know, all that does is add stress. Kids don't want us to be perfect. They just want us to be there, right? They
Right.
want our time, they want our attention, and the better we can just connect and even show our flaws and our challenges and how we go through them. Kids don't want these unreasonable expectations because they're watching real close, right? When they see us apparently handling stress and tragedy and all that stuff without any issues, they misinterpret that that's how the world is, and it's not the case. The world needs to, you need to do a little bit of crying along the way. Your challenges happen, you cry and you fear and you get angry, and then you overcome that. And so our kids want to see all of that, not perfect at all. And so it never is. It wasn't with us. We you know I think to build persistence you need challenges, right? Or else you can't have persistence. So that
Right.
dichotomy of the opposite extremes needs to be there. And that's why there's no place in parenting for perfection.
I just thought about trying to keep the deck on a level, um,
Yeah.
because something like that would throw it out of whack. Um,
Yeah.
what exactly is crisis parenting?
I've already mentioned that, our family has been through it a lot, losing twins
Sure.
at birth to a special needs child developing a rare disorder, a rare genetic disorder, uh, 10 years straight of emergency hospitalizations after emergency hospitalizations. I would consider crisis parenting as something where parents have a long time frame, or often where they are raising kids when it's extremely challenging. Um, you know, Everybody has to try and get a crying baby to sleep, or um, potty train a toddler, or figure out how to keep your 3-year-old from biting the neighbor kid. So those are normal parenting things. And I'm not going to argue for a second that in the moment they don't feel like crises. But I think when I talk about crises parenting, I'm talking about the longevity of challenges that you have to go through as a parent, and still building good kids. And so that's one reason why I wrote this book. One reason why I have my website is to just show parents that, there's you can have a lot of confidence that your kids will turn out in this crazy and upside down world if you do just a few things right most of the time. And we'll spell it out, what those things are. I can give you a couple examples. In fact, I'll give you a story.
Okay.
I know a gal once who had a couple boys way back in the day, and I knew them somewhat personally, and both kids were just great kids, right? And they were being raised well. And from looking at it from the outside in, I'm thinking to myself, wow, gal, you're doing a really good job here. And yet, one of the boys, as he became a teenager, he became defiant, right? And this woman was beside herself. She's, thinking to herself, what did I do wrong? And feeling guilty about she must have failed him in some regard. And and this had me confused because I'm saying to myself, everything I'm seeing, she did everything right. This is just a hiccup. And I think parents need to understand a lot of these kids, when they have certain behaviors as teenagers, these are just hiccups. These are not kids that are going to jail for life. And so that was the case with this mom. And eventually, this particular son turned his life around. He grew up. His brain developed further, right? Your brain isn't supposedly developed fully until about the age of 25. And so long story short, this child, this young man now is married and he's got two kids of his own, and he's a wonderful dad. And the bigger point here is, um, this mom should have had all the confidence in the world that this kid was going to turn out. And so her only job, instead of maybe freaking out or having a lot of fear and guilt about her scenario, she should have had confidence and hope and just compassion for the child as this child was going through his tough times.
Well, it's not easy, and
No.
and it'll surprise you. But I think communication and talking, making sure that everybody's on the same wave, and what the goal is. Is there a greatest lesson your kids taught you, or do they all come together?
I guess they've each taught me different lessons along the way that I'm well aware of because they're each different personalities. But if there's one lesson I think that I did learn, and it took a few kids, but that is that they leave us all kinds of clues. And again, that's the reason for this book, is just to say kids show us in many regards how to
Mhm.
raise them. Right? They come to the table. They're born literally with more natural tendencies toward all these great characteristics we think about, like integrity and courage and all that. And somehow
Okay.
along the way, a lot of us teach this out of them. And so what we need to do is just pay closer attention to the kids and try and get a glimpse of the lessons that they're teaching us. And the book will show you exactly what some of these lessons are. But my kids in particular, the one lesson they taught me was that things would always work out okay. Our kids watched my, with me, they watched from the porch every time that ambulance left the driveway with my wife and our son Jonah. And without exception, these kids grew up knowing that everything was going to be okay. They still felt the stress, right? Doesn't mean you can't feel the emotions, but they understood that things would be okay because we allowed them to feel that way right from the get-go. So,
Well, a lot of lessons were in my family, but they generally were generated from going to church,
sure.
and yeah, and that was probably the anchor for me. Still, um, was it hard getting all those kids in the church?
Well, actually, we started out with church, and then we ended up home church, doing home church. Basically, we taught Christian principles at home because of our special needs son. It just became easier. We stayed connected with
Right.
multiple families in the church. We were there when they got older. They joined the Christian youth group in town. Um, so I think churches are great. I think as long as you teach some version of faith and hope, and that there's a higher power, that is essential to really raising morally grounded human beings, no doubt.
Right.
So,
Right. Can't get around it.
yeah,
Make sure you have them feel the same. It's
yeah,
it works good. Uh, I've got a little problem that'll take me, I think, forever by the arguing grandchildren and the arguing parents.
Yeah.
This has been good. Now, tell me where my listeners can find your book and give them that
Sure.
long
If
title.
Yeah. So the book is called When Kids Leave Clues, 26 Timeless Stories of Inspiration and Essential Life Lessons Taught to Us by Our Own Children. And you can find that there's a direct link on my website. The website is instituteforconfidentparenting.com. Or you can go search it on Amazon. And feel free, if you want, I've got a newsletter sign up on my website as well, along with a free gift there for leaving me your email. It's called The 7 C's of a Confident Parent, and that'll give you some quick tips on how to become more confident that your kids are going to turn out. So,
Well, I signed up for the newsletter. You don't need to give me a gift.
you'll automatically get it in your email.
Okay, wonderful. Let me ask you, let's see, Amazon is where most of the book sales are going to happen.
Yeah.
That's good. And for me, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. It really is.
Likewise, and I've enjoyed getting to know your story too, John.
Well, it is what it was, and it's still what it is. What
Yeah.
it is, you get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, good luck with your grandchildren. They're a blessing.
they are. Oh, but then now I've got other grandchildren that are still in high school or college. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
It's 2 families.
Yeah.
Let's see. I want to thank you for being here
You're
and
welcome.
listening to my audience. You'll probably recognize my audios. And I like the people that tune in to Searching for Integrity. And so long and happy trails to all.